Hello and welcome to the Curiosity and Consciousness podcast with me, Karen Maloney. I am your host, and the intention of this podcast is to help us open our minds, get curious about ourselves, and to raise our vibration and consciousness levels. Through these conversations, we hope that you will go on an inward journey to discover the truth of who you are and to become aware of your own energy and vibration. We have the power to consciously create our lives, but we need to wake up to this fact before we can begin the process and learn the key of self-responsibility. Check out the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Acast, Castbox, or whatever platform you listen on, and please like, subscribe, and share the podcast. Leave a review, leave a rating, as this will help it to reach more people. Check out my website as well, Soul Power Light, www.soulpowerlight.com. Hello everybody, welcome and thanks for joining me for another episode. This week, great conversation all about breakups. We all go through them. So I've Breakup Coach Trina Leckie joining me. But before we jump in, I would love to ask anyone who listens on iTunes to please leave a review and a rating, 5-star rating ideally, for the podcast, as this is a way that will help it to reach more people on iTunes. I would deeply appreciate it. So thank you. I also invite you to check out my website, my upcoming online group workshops. So go to soulpowerlight.com, click online workshops, and you will find all the information about my upcoming 5-week group online workshop. I'm really excited to work with you, bringing a group of women together to realign our own inner compass, to rediscover our own personal truth, build confidence, reevaluate our priorities, and take some steps to changes we wish to make in different areas of our lives. It's going to be lots of fun, so I invite you to check it out and reach out to me to book in your free 30-minute discovery call to see if it might be a right fit for you. And then back to today's episode, I am joined by Trina Leckie, and Trina is a breakup coach and host of the popular podcast Breakup Boost, where she tells you what you need to hear and not just what you want to hear post-breakup. She believes that sugarcoating only keeps people stuck and that a change in perspective has the power to change your life. Trina knows what it's like to go through heartbreak, but she also knows that you can always get through it and be better off because of it. Her mission is to help people heal their hearts and get back in the dating saddle. She also provides personalized coaching for anyone struggling, seeking guidance, or just needing someone to talk to. A great conversation with Trina, who is very honest and doesn't sugarcoat things when it comes to post breakups, and encourages men and women to look for the positives, to grow. How can they expand post breakup? What new perspectives can they take, or what can they learn about themselves so going forward they can find the truly right relationship for them? It was really an insightful conversation. Trina shares lots of tips as well on how we can build confidence, because for her, everything comes down to that inner confidence and building that trust in ourselves and learning to be honest with ourselves as well. She shares lots of information as well and tips on how we can stop making excuses for people that maybe really weren't good for us, or how we can support ourselves in getting over an ex or take an ex off a pedestal, so we actually see the facts and maybe what was wrong in the relationship, so we don't keep ourselves pining for something that wasn't meant to be. Really fantastic conversation. I'm sure you'll get lots from it. Be sure to share it as well if you know someone who is possibly going through a breakup right now and feel they may benefit from it. And you can check out more of Trina's work on our website, breakupboost.com. So welcome, Trina Leckie. I'm so happy to have you join me today. You are a breakup coach, so I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have today. But first of all, welcome and thank you for joining.
Thank you, Karen. It's an honor to be on your podcast. I'm really excited.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited as well because I mean, breakups, something we've all gone through, we've all cried over, been heartbroken, X, Y, and Z, whatever.
Yeah.
So we've all been there. And, I'm really excited to have a conversation with you as well because you're all about, you're very, from your website and your work and your podcast, you're very much straight talking as well and what people need to hear as opposed to what maybe they just want to hear sometimes, which can be difficult sometimes.
Exactly. That's the thing. If you sugarcoat things, people aren't going to really learn. You have to just be straightforward. And I always have the approach of let's not waste your time here. Let's get you up and running and feeling better as soon as possible versus just saying what sounds nice or coddling. That doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, explain to us a little bit more, I suppose. Yeah, a little bit more about your work and how you help people and maybe even what led you as well to your work.
Okay, well, first of all, my background is in marketing and communications, but I always felt like I just wanted to do something else and that I had more to offer the world type thing. So over the years, I found myself constantly encountering people who were either struggling with a relationship, going through a breakup, sitting on the fence about whether or not they should break up or getting back into the dating scene and having a really tough time with it. It's like just day in and day out, there's always someone who has some kind of issue like that. Yeah. So I was helping people that I knew or just random people would just start telling me their problems. You know how you just kind of like attract that kind of thing?
Yeah.
And I was really good at giving advice and everyone was always like, oh my God, you should be a coach. You're so good at this. And I really enjoyed it. And I really like the idea of helping people, empower people and making people realize, they don't have to be in a bad situation. Like it's a choice, right? So I thought this is something the world really needs more of, and I wanted to expand my reach and I thought, why not start a podcast? So now I have my podcast called Breakup Boost. There's such a need for this sort of thing because everybody, no matter, your gender, where you're from, how old you are, everyone goes through heartbreak and it's the type of thing we can't dodge in life. It's going to hit us at one point, at least, usually multiple times. So, and it's not even like it gets really much easier as you get, as you go on. Like if you get your heart broken when you're in your 20s or if you get your heart broken in your 40s, you're still hurting. It's not like, oh no, I can just handle it all. No, people struggle, right? You struggle through all life. So exactly. So that's how I started the podcast and then I also do coaching. So I do coaching through email or phone coaching and it's all about putting things in perspective for people because when people are going through something, they're just seeing really one side of things. They're keeping themselves stuck and they don't realize it. So it's about showing them, look at it from this point of view, and it really kind of opens their eyes. So
yeah, I love what you just said there. We do in every situations, but whether relationships or not, in lots of life situations, we keep ourselves stuck and perspective is huge to open and have that shift to allow something else to come in. So I'm really curious as well then through your podcast and your coaching, what are some of the biggest issues that you hear from people, maybe post breakup, or some of the biggest reasons why people break up in the first place? They're probably two separate questions.
Yeah, well, some of it can kind of go hand in hand, but for the most part, it's people not being respected and a lot of shady behavior, especially with the internet these days and social media. Back in the day, you broke up with someone and that was it. You probably weren't really going to see them again. Now people are stalking their exes online and all that kind of thing. But even during a relationship, people are checking, oh my God, they're clicking like on this girl. Oh, something going on. Oh, they commented this. And it becomes this huge thing. So there's a huge thing with social media. But I always say it's not social media's fault. People always say, oh, Facebook screwed up relationships or Instagram screwed up relationships. It's like, no, the person who is doing something inappropriate is the one who's screwing up the relationship, right? So, but other things, such as infidelity, that's the one thing that people never really get over, and it constantly gets brought up. It's just never the same again once cheating has occurred. I mean, I've known from my own experience, it's just never the same again. You can't look at them the same way. You always have to wonder and worry and have anxiety. What are they doing when they're not with me? That is just a nightmare. Abusive situations, that's a definite deal breaker. That could be physical, emotional, or mental abuse, that obviously creates a really toxic and dangerous environment. The thing with abuse is a lot of people, they get so deep in it and their self-esteem is so low that they feel like they can't pull themselves out of it. Because so many people look at that and think, oh, well, what are they like? What was she thinking or what is he thinking? But it's not about that though. Like you gotta understand their frame of mind is not healthy, you know? They don't feel like they deserve more. And this person has beat them down so bad that, you know, they just don't feel like they're actually worthy of love. They don't have that confidence to know that there's more out there.
Yeah. So many different issues and scenarios that, you know, whether we come in contact with personally or we all know someone or friends or family member or someone who's in these situations. And, you know, in your work as well, when you don't sugarcoat, how do you help the person as well to see that? Because it always takes two to tango as well. And, you know, I always say nothing can happen without our participation as well. So, and it's a really difficult situation. It's not so black and white because we meet needs, whether in functional or dysfunctional ways. So say for someone, their partner is cheating all the time or something, but they keep going back. So how can you help them to see maybe deeper issues going on?
Well, first of all, it's just they're usually coming up with a million excuses for the other person. So it's eliminating that kind of mentality. Like, stop making excuses. Like, people will say even stuff like, oh, well, he said he was depressed. It's not just him. I'm just saying, like, because women do this to women and guys, but just from example. They could say, oh, he said he's depressed or he said he's lost in life. It's like, that's not a reason for anyone to cheat on you. Like, let's stop making excuses. Okay. This is not acceptable. Like, start having standards. It's just telling them those kinds of things and making them stop lying to themselves, basically, right? And a lot of people just don't point those things out. They just say, "Oh, what a loser," or whatever. They're not getting that perspective from most people, like friends and family. You know, they just say, "Oh, move on," but they're not really like digging deeper and seeing like you're allowing this, like you're essentially allowing this. Like you can say a million times, "Oh, why did this happen to me?" or "Why did they do this to me?" But they're doing it because you're allowing it. They've cheated 3 times, but you're still there. Why would they stop? But it goes down to as well as why are you picking these types of people, right? Like if this is making you feel so poorly, why are you? It all starts with there. Like who are you picking? And so many people are so desperate to just be with someone to be with someone, you know. And it's not about even being in a good relationship. It's just like, oh gosh, I need a boyfriend or I need a girlfriend, you know, or you know, societal and family pressure is so big, so I need this. So it's about the whole thing with me is giving them a different perspective from what they're stuck in this bubble, right? So it's like telling them straight up a better way of looking at everything like that. And then also just, you know, analyzing like how are these things making you feel? Like ask them, how are these things making you feel? Does this make you feel good? No, it's making them feel depressed, worthless, anxious, unlovable. So then it's like, okay, so how do you ever expect to be in a good relationship if you're with someone who makes you feel terrible, right? It's like getting them to be more honest with themselves. Yeah. That's the thing. You have to be honest with yourself. If you can't be honest with yourself and your own best friend, how can you expect anyone else to be for you?
Yeah, so true. And how do you find the, you know, helping them with that shift or telling them straight up? Does it often take a bit of time or do a lot of people... because everyone knows, like you say, it's the truth of getting honest with ourselves. Deep down we know, but then hearing it from someone else, like you say, outside of family, and that do they get an instant shift?
It's almost always they right away know exactly, they'll agree with you, especially people respect an outside opinion more. A lot of times family and friends, they get more defensive, right? But if you're an outside unbiased perspective, they're going to respect that more. And they usually always are right away. Yeah, they're agreeing. They know, and especially when you really point things out to them, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, like you're so right. Yeah. But, you know, but do they then stick with that? It's still sometimes a process, right? Like we could have a great conversation and empower them and they can feel so good. But then a week later, they're with their ex again who cheated on them multiple times. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time, right?
Yeah.
The thing with confidence, you don't just snap your fingers and get it, right? Because I'm a firm believer it all really does boil down to confidence and knowing your worth and really sticking to that, you know, putting your foot down. Don't feel you need somebody. Just be around someone who injects joy into your life.
Yeah, and we'll come to confidence definitely in how people, you can help people as well with some tips to connect to that part of themselves. But I loved what you said as well about, stop lying to themselves. And I know Mark, I can't remember his surname now, but he's actually Canadian as well. And
Groves, right?
Yeah, Create the Love.
Yeah.
He says, I love what he says, people prefer to live with comfortable lies than uncomfortable truths.
Absolutely.
And that's so true. And even in my own case, I know with an ex where I went through really traumatic, breakup in the end or whatever. But like that, I was making excuses and, he was going through issues and whatnot. But it took some time. It was only afterwards I realized, I was like, no, hell no. I completely lost myself there. And I can't lose myself for anyone else if they're not willing, no matter how much I love them. And it was just like a big, massive reality check. But also it was the deeper issue of, I allowed fear to rule my life because I was afraid. The story I was telling myself was, well, what if I don't get another chance? What if I don't meet someone else? Like, oh my God, he's going to come back to how he was, and
exactly. That's the biggest thing when people are so they're letting fear run their lives in terms of, oh my God, I'm never going to meet anyone else and all this. And I just say, like, okay, so right now you're miserable. You're totally disheveled and sad about this situation. So you'd rather stay in this than remove yourself and have a chance at happiness, right? It's like, let's make the connection here,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the importance like that, I certainly didn't know of a breakup coach. I'd never heard of a breakup coach going back a few years. And, it was through my own processes and following my own truths that I eventually got there. But if there's someone that can help you as well, even better, because like that, we all need a little helping hand sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. And just for my own personal, I've been through, the only way we get through things is by learning. And I always think that it's actually a good thing that if you're to go through a really bad relationship, like a lot of people might think, why would that be good? It's good because you learn, and that's how you're going to grow. And that's how you're going to establish standards going forward and spot red flags and deal breakers. You have to go through that to learn. That's how, I've been through all these things. That's how I'm able to help people. It's not like I just coasted through life and had a happy relationship my whole life, right?
You just read it in a book and you thought it sounded good.
You really need that experience to know exactly how, if someone contacts me, I can feel exactly how they're feeling. I understand it. I can relate to it. I know what they're telling themselves. I understand it. Also, that's how I'm able to help them.
Yeah, so true. Like that, even for myself and, losing the relationship, and I lost all my possessions and everything as well. So it was like a double whammy, but it's like that quote as well. Sometimes you have to lose what you place your value in to realize it doesn't live there. And
exactly,
that was exactly it. And I came back to me going, oh shit, yeah, actually, I am not these things I own or this relationship I have. I am so much more within. And when we connect to that and build on that and then move forward into relationships, because everything is relationship at the end of the day. We're in relationship with everything, with a partner, with family, with friends, with food, with our thoughts, with everything. Everything is based on relationship. And for me now, the number one relationship is the relationship I have with myself. That determines every other aspect of our lives. So I'd love to come back to what you mentioned about confidence and how people can learn to find that confidence within and to learn to value themselves again, maybe post breakup.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Because it's one thing to say, oh, build your confidence, but then giving helpful tips helps people.
Make it tangible.
Yeah, exactly. One of the crucial things in confidence and just in life in general is setting personal goals. You want to prove to yourself you can accomplish things. You want to have something to work towards. It's a way to believe in yourself again, and it's a way to make headway in life. So personal goals is everything, like whether it's, business or fitness or any kind of goal you have, just have goals. Always have goals. A really important thing I feel is get comfortable with spending time alone, because so many people, I always say loneliness leads to bad decisions, and usually a huge factor of people staying in things that aren't working for them is because they're lonely, right? So get comfortable with that. And ways you can do that is go to lunch by yourself. go to a movie by yourself, go on a solo vacation. It's probably the most liberating thing. I mean, you travel on your
Yeah.
own and you do all that stuff. Like, that's amazing. The first time I did that, I was so scared, but I was
So
like,
was
it was
I. This
so
is it. And even
good.
friends. And this is the thing, this is like you say, it's a practice we build, confidence. Some friends are like, oh my God, you're so incredible. You're so amazing that you can do this. And I'm like, no, I was terrified as well. But,
hmm
you do it and you're like, oh, it's not so bad.
Exactly.
So I
It's a
love that.
choice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a choice. It's just like when people say, like when I moved to Vancouver, I mean, I used to live in Calgary. When I moved to Vancouver, people would be like, you're so lucky. It's like, this isn't luck. It's a choice I made. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was scared and I barely had any money, but I wanted to do it, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it's just a choice. So independence is so key. You don't want to be dependent on people, and you definitely don't want to be dependent on anyone for your happiness.
Yeah.
If you don't, you need that internally. A lot of people, their confidence is down because they're unhappy at work and they're not satisfied. So look for a new job. Like whenever people complain about not being happy at work, it's like, well, you can complain for another month or another 5 years, but what's that going to do, right? Like look for a new job, start a side hustle to challenge yourself and put more money in your bank account. Another thing is money. A lot of people in relationships, they're dependent. They say, oh my God, I can't move out now, or I don't have the money to leave them. Always be independent, right? What else? Do things that push yourself outside of your comfort zone, like we talked about. Cut off people who bring you down and insult you or even seem jealous of you. People who you don't feel that have good intentions towards you. Don't be scared to cut those people off. You want to seek out people who inspire you, who are positive, who you can learn from. You don't want to be around people who just gossip all day and who are just really complacent in life. That's why they say
Yeah.
surround like the five people you surround yourself with, that's who you kind of become. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
I think a really good one too in terms of dating is talk to people on the phone or just in general life. So many people are just they're text, text, text. We don't have that social connection and people almost get anxious about talking on the phone. It's like talk on the phone. That's a good way to boost your confidence. Change your look up. It's always a great thing to change your look, change your hair, make some adjustments to your wardrobe, maybe do something new with makeup, spruce yourself up. Confidence, like it's just like when people go to a salon, I always say there's such a drastic difference from someone walking in versus when they're walking
Yeah.
out, right? It's that confidence and I love it. It's just so great to see. And then also working out. You always want to work out. You don't want to be looking in the mirror and feeling, I wish I looked better or I wish I looked healthier. It's all about health too. It's not just about looking better. It's
Yeah.
about being healthy, right? Healthy mind and body. It's all connecting. And I always say that loving yourself is more than clicking like on a post on Instagram that says love yourself, right? It's
Yeah.
like you have to put that into action. So working out and just working out is boosting your mood incredibly. Like I don't think a lot of people realize who don't exercise when you say, oh, it boosts your mood and they think, yeah, right. It does. Like it
Yeah.
gives you those endorphins and it does. It affects everything. So, and especially if one of your goals is to get in better shape, when you can see changes, you're so much more motivated. That's going to boost your confidence too, right? And
Yeah.
people start noticing, they're like, wow, have you been working out? So all those kinds of things.
Again, yeah. I mean, the experience always comes in the action. It's always in the doing again. Like everything we can think, we can have an idea, we can plan, but it's only in the doing that we'll actually know the experience. So when we do all these things, and I think it's really important as well that and bringing in like self-compassion and self-love as we're doing these changes. And like, because as you said, confidence, you don't just flick on a light switch. It takes a bit of work as well. It's that deeper inner work of valuing ourselves, of learning to accept and embrace ourselves exactly as we are right now, right here, while maybe we're on the road to X, Y, and Z, or to feeling much better, or to doing more things that light us up. Because again, change takes time. And I think it's really important as well for people to always remember that and to have that acceptance and self-forgiveness and self-compassion through all the journey. Because, well, for me anyway, as well, whenever we're embracing change, it's always about fully accepting and acknowledging where we're at. Because if we don't start from right where we're at and be okay with that, I think it's very difficult as well, or we make it more difficult on ourselves. So I love all those tips as well for confidence. And like you say, it's all about just building that trust in ourselves, you know, and knowing that we can keep these little promises to ourselves, or that we can have the onus on ourselves to make us feel good, and to know that, like that, by getting our hair done, we can feel a million times better. Like, it doesn't always have to be dependent on a person or something incredible happening or someone doing something amazing for us. It's our responsibility as well to make us feel good, to do things that light us up, to live our life.
100%. And the whole key thing is being patient with yourself too. Like you said, like the compassion and self-love and all that. Be patient. And I think a huge issue with especially the younger generation is the instant gratification. You know, it's not about that. That's a problem, you know. Absolutely. When everyone has, oh, I need this right now, I need this right now, I need to feel this good right now. No, it's a process. You need to put the work in, just like anything else, just like growing a business. You need to put the work in. You're not going to be a millionaire overnight, you know.
No. And that instant gratification, you know, what a great thing that you just mentioned there, because that's the society we've been built. We've been built to look for instant hits, those instant dopamine hits, like, oh, this will fix it, this will give me the boost. But we also know how detrimental that can go as well, because then we need more and more and more to get the same effect. So yeah, that's a huge part of the change as well, that living for long-term gratification is so much more satisfying than that instant gratification, because like that, you're always on edge. Your adrenals are fired up because you're like, oh my God, where's my next hit? What's the next thing? I need to go on social media again. I need to scroll. I need to get that buzz. And we're all built in that society. This is what has been thrown at us. But again, like you're saying as well, it's our choice. We always have a choice. The power is in our hands.
You always have a choice. And the thing is, you have to put in the effort. Yeah. Just like in a relationship, people have to put in the effort consistently. You know, ongoing for it to work. And same thing with yourself. You have to put in the effort. You can't just be, you know, disappointed in a day and say, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. This isn't working. It's like, it's not about that. You have to put in the effort and be patient. So, yeah.
Completely. Well, let's go back then more to in relationship then, when people are in relationships and say you've got your confidence and, you know, your value, how can people have healthy boundaries in relationships and not become, you know, you mentioned the word independent as well. You know, codependency is another huge issue, again, in relationships and with lots of things in our life. For me, if we're codependent on anything, whether it's exercise or anything, it can be a fine line. So how can people learn, both couples, to have healthy boundaries and to respect each other and to not form that really kind of toxic codependent relationship?
Well, I think it starts with, you know, not just dating someone just to date. A big thing is this relationship really adding positively to your life? You know, like, be real with yourself. Is it adding positively? Is this injecting joy into my life? Or am I just feeling needy and desperate, right? Because you're going to get a way different outcome depending on why you're in this relationship. You really need to have those standards and stick to them, right? It's one thing to say, oh, I'm not going to put up with this, but then people, they find themselves in the same patterns over and over and over again. It's because they're not sticking to their standards. And it's also about, you know, it's not just looking at the other person for everything. It's what can I do to make my partner's life better? How can I meet their needs? How can I be more giving? And, you know, how can I enrich this person's life? It's not just me, me, me. You don't want to be afraid to end a relationship because, like we said before, you don't want to find anyone else, that kind of thing. It's just, you just have to go by, how is this making me feel, right? If something's not making you feel, that's the red flag within yourself that this is not a good situation. Ask yourself, why am I really in this relationship? Like, am I really day to day, am I honestly happy, or am I just going through the motions?
Yeah. Doing it because it's expected maybe, or that, and expectations are huge.
Exactly. And especially now during quarantine, a lot of people, so many people, I don't know if you noticed, but there's been so many, especially celebrities that have broken up. I just keep getting all these alerts in my inbox or whatever.
You are the breakup coach, so you need to know of any of these breakups.
And it's just one after the other, and it just opens your eyes. And a lot of people, they're blaming quarantine, but I'm saying the way I look at it is this is actually kind of a good thing because usually people are just going through the motions day to day. They're not really examining things. They're just letting things slide and whatever. But this is giving people an opportunity to really examine their relationship and not have any distractions the way. You can't really sugarcoat if you're around someone all the time. Like if you're living together, for example, you can't sugarcoat it, right? So this is actually giving an opportunity for people to say, wait a second, actually, I'm not really happy in this and I do want more in my life. So, you know what I mean? It's ironically a positive thing when you really do look at it.
Yeah, I totally agree as well. And it comes back to the whole thing of we're not living in truth. We rather live with comfortable lies and sugarcoat, like you say, and just keep going. Whereas when we're forced and actually you're with this person 24/7, these deeper subconscious issues come up and you're like, oh my God, it's like, what have I been doing, you know? And sometimes it's that knock on the head, and which is not easy, which is not, you know, just because you're seeing it doesn't make it easier to accept kind of thing. But it's been shown as well for a reason is always my take. And then I suppose moving on, and how can we rise and grow from breakups and learn to celebrate them? Because, you know, at the end of the day, if it's not working, it's not working. And then why hold on and attached and be, yes, we have to deal with the emotions and the heartbreak and the loss and the grief, but those emotions come and go. They're transient. We need to separate and not live there the whole time. So how do you help people kind of shift perspective and to like that celebrate and learn and grow from the end of a relationship, being like, oh, thank God that's not for me. What is even better for me?
Okay, yeah. Well, you don't want to just focus on the fact that a relationship ended or see it as a failure. You'll see, especially a lot of people who go through divorce, they'll say, oh, I failed. It's actually takes a lot of courage to end a marriage because you're not happy, right? So I think you should always see it as, look, we weren't a match long term. We just weren't a match. Like, it doesn't have to be the end of the world. Just, it's okay. You know, not everyone is meant to be in our lives forever.
Yeah.
You also want to ask yourself, what did I learn from this? And how could I address these problems going forward so that I don't find myself in the same type of relationship again? So it's like, what can we learn from these things? You know, take ownership of where you went wrong, because maybe you were the cause of the breakup. So you want to own that versus rationalizing or excusing or placing blame, those kinds of things. And you can also take this as an opportunity to uncover your weaknesses and things that you can work on. You know, we always want to say, oh, it's their fault. You know, it's not always the other person's fault. There's always two to tango, you know. Focus on the positives and be grateful of what you got out of the relationship. And ask yourself, what were you able to give to someone else? Like, did you make, at the end of the day, when the relationship ended, did you leave them better than when they started? That's a good thing, you know? Even if you're not happy with them, that's still a good thing. You gotta look at it, right?
Yeah, and I love that as well, because again, when we see the facts and kind of come out of the story, again, well, for me anyway, it's been my experience that it's so much easier to process things. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's so much easier when we're not caught up in the story and actually, you know, seeing the facts and seeing, like what you're saying, what you did bring, all the positives, and how you can learn things that we've uncovered within ourselves and go, oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, maybe that's something I need to look at in myself as well. So that's really positive. And then what do you feel? Do you see a lot of people then who go straight into other relationships, rebounds, or do you think it's valuable for people to take some time?
Well, there's two things. First of all, I don't suggest anyone just hop on apps right away and kind of try to find a great connection that way after a breakup or when you're going through heartbreak. That said, if someone pops up unexpectedly in your life and you are super into them and you really click, that can really help you. You can just have an awakening and it can really snap you out of that breakup. But it has to be someone who you really like and really connect with. And I believe it has to happen organically. But if someone is constantly thinking about their ex, they're missing them, they're comparing everyone to their ex, they're on dating apps, desperately looking for someone just to fill the void, that's not good. You need to feel, you know, and who wants to go on a date with someone who's depressed about their ex still, right? It's not going
Yeah.
to bring good energy. So
No.
it depends on the situation, and it depends really on how the person is doing individually. But for the most part, take the time to heal and reflect, and you don't have to rush to just be with someone else. Because then if you're rushing, that's a clear sign and a red flag within yourself that you're just finding validation or searching for validation and self-worth in someone else.
Yeah.
And then you're setting yourself up for disaster right from the get-go.
Yeah. And do you ever do any kind of, I don't know, closing ceremonies? I don't know what you'd call them, with clients when you work with them, like something to, for our own sake, even like a formality or some kind of ritual that we could do to just kind of cut cords or just to close out that episode, that chapter of your life and start a new one, or no?
Well, one thing I always suggest to people where I think it kind of, people always say they want closure or whatever. First of all, the closure is within, a lot of people are still searching. They're saying it's closure, but they're really just looking for a reason to contact their ex again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're still hoping that their ex is going to say, oh, I changed my mind. I can't live without you. So,
or even I don't mean with their other partner having a closeout ceremony. I mean more for themselves, something that they can do to help them just close out that chapter themselves privately on their own or with a friend or whatever, not with their partner per se or the ex.
Yeah, no, exactly. So basically I always tell people to make a list, write down everything that was not working in the relationship, because I think a huge part of that is keeping people, they're putting the relationship and the other person on a pedestal, and they're making it seem like it's so much better than it was. They always say, like, I hear this often, they say, our relationship was perfect. Well, it wasn't perfect because you would still be together if it was. So I think a huge exercise in kind of getting that closure for yourself is being honest and write down everything that really happened and how you really felt, and down to the nitty gritty, exact instances that happened or circumstances that happened or whatever, and just be completely real with yourself and look at that. And then you're not hanging on to, oh, this, he was all, or he or she was all I'm ever going to have. That was my life. That relationship was my life. And it was so great. And it's like, no, it really wasn't. So I think when people do that, a lot of times too, it's ironic because they'll call me and then I'll tell them, they'll be so heartbroken and they'll be in that state where they think they can't get over their ex. But then I'll tell them, do that exercise. And it's a lot of times people say, I couldn't even get through it all. I was so annoyed and disgusted.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a really valuable tool, because like you say, we create this illusion and this story that, oh my God, it was magic and it was great and it was the best and I'll never find that again. But sometimes then, like you said, when we sit down and get really honest, we see all the tiny little nuts and bolts and we're like, actually, that was not so great at all.
No.
Why did I put up with it? I love that little tool. What a powerful tool for people as well to remember. And then in relationships as well, obviously in relationships, communication is key as well. And how, I don't know, do you often work with couples? Or, well, no, I suppose if breakup coach, they're kind of, they're at a different stage. But even say, just touching on in relationships as well, or what is one of the most important tools that people can work on together? Is there something else that you've come across in your work that is really a vital skill that both parties need to bring to the relationship as well?
I think a huge thing, it kind of goes back to what we were kind of talking about before, about feeling whole on your own and making sure that you're still prioritizing yourself, and you're not just, you have to be two people in a relationship who are still two people with their own identity. You can't be two people who become one. It's just not, that sounds like a Hallmark card or whatever, sure, but it's not, you know what I mean? Because when you're whole on your own and you're doing things for yourself and you have your own life going on still and you have your own goals and all that, it's just going to be better for the both of you.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. A lot of people, they get just too dependent, and then say, the relationship goes downhill, and then that's a big reason why people are hanging on for dear life, because they feel like this is all I have. You never want to be
built so much into it.
Yeah, you never want to be in that position. You don't want to feel like this is your end all and be all and you don't have a life without them, because that's when people are hanging on to the wrong situations.
Yeah, I love that. Again, that's really important. And it comes back to, again, what you said before. It's that choice. If you're two whole people coming together that have done their inner work and that are aligned with their values and, have their confidence and healthy boundaries, and then they come together, then they decide to go into a relationship and to grow and evolve together, because relationships are one of the most fertile grounds, like, to be triggered and to show you all your hidden wounds and darkness, which is fine. But again, if we haven't already maybe come to that place of wholeness within ourselves, that's when the codependency and attachment and all sorts of not so great things can come about. So I love that as well.
And I think that's, chemistry is one thing. You need chemistry, but a lot of people overlook the fact that you really do need that compatibility, because a lot of people think, oh, they're so hot or whatever,
Yeah.
Sure, you need to be attracted to the person, but you really do, at the end of the day, especially as time goes on, you need that compatibility and you need a similar mindset. Because I know from my own experience, when I've been with someone and we have totally different views on things, you keep clashing and clashing. And it's just, you realize, oh my God, this is just not going to work,
Yeah. Have you seen that? Was it a meme or meme? I can never know which way you pronounce it.
I know.
It's something about, dating in your 20s. It's like, do you have a six-pack or something ridiculous like that? But then it's like dating in your 30s, and it's like, so what hidden wounds have you worked on within yourself, or what inner work have you been working on, in yourself? But again, it's that perspective. It's like you've been talking about the whole time, and we all go through that process of possibly maybe looking more externally at a certain stage of our life, but then we do start coming back to, if there's constant repeating patterns, like you're saying, we have to kind of hold our hands up and go, well, I'm a common denominator here as well. So maybe, just maybe, it's not just the other person. Maybe there's something within me as well. And going on that inward journey and allowing ourselves to be curious. And again, like everything you mentioned as well, having that patience and compassion as well while doing that work.
Exactly. And I think another interesting thing, someone had messaged me the other day, and they, I had said about being really careful about who you're dating going forward. Like, if you want a good relationship, be more selective with who you're dating. And so they were like, well, what kind of questions do we ask? And, at the beginning, when they're just like, say, on an app or whatever, or even in person. And I said, I think a huge thing is understanding that people can say whatever they want to say. They're going to say, like, you really have to, like, that's relying on a stranger being truthful with what you're asking. People can say whatever. You have to be able to feel things out and pick up on things, because you can tell a lot about a person's intelligence and maturity, for example, by how they message. Do they formulate proper sentences? Do they care at all to ask about you, or are they just talking about themselves? Are they already talking about sexual things? Did they say they're separated, but they maybe still live with their ex? Are they calling their ex crazy? Are they employed? Do they have only one photo maybe? Or in person, do they seem like a dad or a quality person? Like, let's take more responsibility for analyzing who we're dating, and who we're choosing. Do they have manners? Are they respectful? Do they have social etiquette and common sense? It's really not that hard to decipher these things. It's really not, right? But like, when people say, well, on a dating app, how do I know if this is a good person? Well, that's, you can tell some things, but like, you know what I mean? It's not about asking someone a question saying, do you want a relationship, and them saying yes and believing it. That doesn't, you have to think too. Like, it's a process. Like, you have to actually think, does this make sense?
Yeah. Love that you say that as well. Because again, not only do people say what they want, we see what we want to see. So again, totally. I think it comes like they mightn't be saying anything and we're seeing stars and like already creating the story. So I think that's why it's so important as well that, like you said there, having those standards, do you think it's worthwhile for people, if they're not in a relationship at the moment, to take that time and go, actually, well, what do I envisage? How do I want to feel? What are things I'm looking for? What are things that maybe are red flags for me that I'm actually going to walk away, no matter how good looking they are? Do you think that's an important factor as well, to get clear within ourselves as well.
Oh, 100%. And I'm huge on law of attraction and stuff like that too. So, yeah, you want to focus on what you actually want. So many people are like, oh, I don't want to date, a cheater again. I don't want to date, a liar again. I don't stop focusing on what you obviously you're stop focusing on what you don't want and having your mind focus on all that negativity. It's going to attract more negativity.
Yeah.
Focus on what you do want. Write down all these qualities. Write down how you envision dates with this person. Write down your deal breakers too, because that's part of what we're supposed to learn from past relationships, and stay true to those deal breakers. Write down those non-negotiables and hold yourself accountable to that kind of thing. So,
and deal breakers, just maybe can you mention a few deal breakers? But obviously there's obvious ones, like if they're abusive in any way or that, but what might be more subtle ones that people may not think of, but actually they're really important?
Well, if someone's not employed, and they're making a million excuses why they're not employed, well, is that really something that you really want to get into? Maybe someone's been married multiple times. Well, that might be a bit of a caution flag, and they're blaming everything on their exes. A huge one is when when guys are calling their ex crazy, or when girls are calling their ex psycho, stuff like that. That usually tells a lot. It shows a lot about maturity. I feel it shows a lot that they're not taking responsibility. It's just showing that they're very dismissive of other people's feelings, which I can't stand. It shows like how they handle situations. It tells a lot about their emotional maturity for sure.
I think it's really vital as well in that exercise, or having your envisioning, how you want to feel and your relationship and whatnot, how you want it to look like, or the dates. Yeah, I think it's really crucial to actually, because again, that comes back to setting our own standards and our healthy boundaries, that actually, no, I'm not going to take someone who, and it may be something even like someone who doesn't drive. That could be a big thing for a person. If they don't drive and they can't. So again, but it just comes down to being truthful and honest with ourselves, and just having that vision, and then allowing what shows up, showing up. And if someone doesn't, or if there's a deal breaker in one of your lists, then it's kind of, again, it comes back to our responsibility going, and that's where we build trust in ourselves, going, well, no, actually, this is a big thing for me, so I'm going to move on, or whatever. It's having that, again, that value in our confidence in ourselves, that we don't have to settle. We don't just have to take breadcrumbs or what comes along. There actually is a higher value person out there, but we have to hold to our values first in order to meet that person.
Exactly. And I think another key deal breaker situation is when people are big talkers, but none of their actions are matching their words, or a lot of people, they say, oh, well, he said I was the most beautiful person, or he said he wanted to marry me, and all these things. It's like, you don't even know each other, first of all, and he's not even around now. He never texts you. He never, if someone's barely even reaching out to contact you, or they're always, after a certain time of the night, you can't find them. Those are all deal breakers. Like anything shady like that, that should be a deal breaker. It's making you anxious for a reason. It's disrespectful. Like if someone's really into you, this is a key thing. If someone is really into you, there will be no confusion. You're going to know by how they treat you and how you feel inside. That's it.
Yeah. Right? And what a powerful way to end, because, that's something I even have to keep reminding myself, because you hear it all the time and it's the truth. It's like, yeah, if someone is really into you, you will know. So
yeah, you will know. Like when you find yourself searching for answers and all this and analyzing every little thing, well, if you were really happy and they were treating you really well, you wouldn't be going through all that.
Yeah,
you just wouldn't. Or a big thing too is women will say, oh, well, he said he doesn't want a relationship, he just wants friends with benefits, but when we're together he takes pictures of us and he acts like we're together, so I think it's like, no, he straied up told you he doesn't want a relationship. Yeah. Don't see what you want to see.
Exactly.
He's telling you straight up he doesn't want a relationship, so then it's on you. Are you okay with just sleeping with someone, or do you want a real relationship? And if you want a real relationship, have the confidence to say that. And if someone can't provide that to you, move on.
Yeah. Yeah, again, it's, that inner truth, that connecting to that truth and honoring and, knowing our own worth and value and knowing that we can meet a person of that caliber. And like you say, in relationships, there'll always be ups and downs and challenges, but to have your more common mode of being in anxious or fear or curious, wondering, where is he, what's he up to? Like, well, either or her, that's just not the norm,
No, it's not good. And a lot of people too, they'll rationalize and say, well, they're better than all my other exes. Okay, so then you're measuring that based on really like people who really treated you poorly. Oh, well, he only cheated once versus multiple times. Like when you start rationalizing like that, that's a red flag within yourself too.
Oh, yes. So much work. Well, the time has just flown away, but I've really enjoyed this conversation as well. And I'd ask you, if people want to look you up, where can they find you, just to share your website? And as always, I'll share it on my website as well. And I don't know if there's any last parting messages or anything that come to mind.
Yeah, well, my website is breakupboost.com and all my social media is at breakupboost, so they can find everything there. And my podcast, of course, is like wherever you find podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any podcast app. Just one key thing I guess I could leave people with. If you really want to truly move on after a breakup, you have to go no contact. So that includes, a lot of people think, oh, it's just not calling. No, it's not. Texting, calling, looking them up on social media, stalking them on social media, looking at photos, all that kind of thing. So you want to eliminate anything that's going to keep them top of mind, because when they're constantly swirling around in your mind, it's going to be like self-torture to yourself. Then people get addicted to checking up on each other all the time. And it just goes on and on until you finally say, enough is enough. I have to do this for myself, and just do it. And so many people, they don't want to go no contact. They're looking for this other secret remedy. The only reason they don't want to go no contact is because they're not accepting that the relationship is over, and they're hoping that their ex is going to reach out and say, oh, I need you in my life. The secret recipe, and the only way you could really move on is not having contact with your ex and not thinking, oh, we can just be friends, because you're realistically not going to be friends with an ex when you still have all these emotions intact.
Yeah. Again, like we said, when we see the facts and get out of the stories, because we really do torture ourselves with the stories, and we are our own torturer at the end of the day, if we do that and hold on. But again, it's all a learning.
No, it's all learning.
It's all a process. And oh my God, yeah, so many things you've said and touched on as well. I'm like, yep, I remember that. But, it is what it is. But it's such a beneficial and insightful conversation to have. And I'm sure lots of people will get loads from it. Because again, breakups are inevitable. We'll all face them, have gone through them in life. So thank you so much for joining and for sharing. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you, Karen. I enjoyed it as well. It was great to be on your podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you get notified every time a new show is released. Get more information on this week's guest as well on my website, www.soulpowerlight.com.